Welcome to the Explainer. What if I told you the absolute hardest part of building wealth isn't actually making the money, but keeping the math unbroken? Okay, so the core premise of our source material is pretty striking. It looks at the growing push to tax wealth that hasn't actually landed in your bank account yet. Just think about that for a second. To really wrap our heads around the gravity of this, we have to know what assets we're actually talking about here. The author's analysis focuses specifically on two primary things: stocks and homes. Notice what we're not talking about. Now, to understand how this impacts you, we really need to establish a baseline and define what this untouched money actually is. An unrealized gain is simply the increase in the value of an asset before it's actually sold for cash. The source makes a really provocative argument here, stating point blank, this isn't just a tax on the rich. Now, regardless of the political framing we hear on the news from both sides of the aisle, the author is asking us to look purely at the mathematical reality of this policy. And that math is the crucial focus. Wealth taxes are frequently pitched as these exclusive measures targeting the ultra-wealthy, the billionaires of the world. But the analysis argues that the underlying mechanics of taxing unrealized gains inherently impact the middle class. Why? Well, because the mathematical principles of investing do not care about your tax bracket. If you disrupt the foundational way an asset grows over time, you disrupt the financial future of anyone holding that asset, whether they have $1,000 invested or $1 billion. And this brings us to a very specific, absolutely crucial milestone in the math of wealth: the first $100,000. In the world of personal finance and investing, this number is legendary. It's widely considered the absolute hardest hurdle to clear. To get to this number, you're relying almost entirely on your own savings rate, your blood, sweat, and tears of just putting money away bit by bit. But once you hit this milestone, the source points out that something incredible is mathematically supposed to happen to your net worth. You essentially transition from pushing a heavy boulder up a steep hill to letting that boulder finally roll down the other side. This number is the launch pad. So the huge point the author makes is that passing this specific $100,000 threshold is mathematically designed to explode your net worth through the power of compounding. And compounding is simply your money making money, and then those new dollars going out and, making little dollar babies of their own. Think about it. When you have $100,000 invested, a 10% return in a single year is $10,000. That might be more than you were able to save from your salary that entire year. This compounding explosion is the very mathematical engine that allows the middle class to eventually retire. It requires time, and most importantly, it requires that the money is left alone to grow upon itself. The larger that base gets, the faster the wealth accelerates. Think of this compounding explosion like a snowball rolling down a mountain, gathering snow and getting exponentially larger and faster. We're looking at the trajectory of uninterrupted, traditional compounding against what happens when an unrealized siphon is introduced. Now, traditional tax policy waits until the snowball hits the very bottom of the mountain when you finally sell the asset, and it takes a chunk then. The snowball had its full mass to gather more snow the entire way down. But an unrealized tax, it acts as a siphon. It forces you to shave off a layer of that snowball every single year while it's still rolling. Mathematically, it never gets the chance to build the mass required for that explosion. You're constantly draining the exact fuel the compounding engine needs to run. So what's the actual fallout when you break this math? Well, taxing a gain before a sale creates a direct annual hit to your compounding power. By forcing an investor to liquidate a portion of their assets or scrounge up cash from somewhere else just to pay taxes on paper gains, you are fundamentally breaking the math of long-term investing. The math entirely relies on the principal remaining fully invested. When you siphon off those gains annually, that beautiful exponential curve just flattens out. The author concludes that this mechanism actively siphons the potential for wealth building away from the middle class. Why? Because everyday investors simply do not have vast outside cash reserves sitting around to pay taxes on paper gains without selling off the very assets they're trying to grow in the first place. The author summarizes this whole effect with some incredibly powerful imagery. They describe this early annual taxation as a permanent drag on a family's financial fortress. I absolutely love that term, financial fortress. It represents security, stability, the ability to weather a rough storm, and ultimately, the freedom to retire with dignity. By breaking the mathematical chain of compounding through an unrealized siphon, you aren't just paying a one-time fee. No, you are permanently lowering the trajectory of that family's financial security for generations. It acts as a persistent, heavy headwind against the exact mechanism designed to build financial independence. It's a heavy concept for sure, but a vital one to grasp if you really want to understand the deep mechanics of wealth. So, I'm going to leave you with this final thought to ponder as you look at your own portfolios, your own home equity, and your own long-term planning. How exactly do structural tax changes fundamentally alter the mathematical reality of building your own wealth? When the basic rules of compounding are rewritten, how does that change the blueprint of your financial fortress? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking the hard questions and keep learning.